outside the church, and just along here, up the road there, is the headlands. I'm about to take you on a guided tour of where I once lived for 14 years, being tortured from the age of 30 up until, not 14 years, more like 12 to 13 years. From the age of 30 to the age of 42. So here we have the headlands where Dr. Jonathan Hart's surgery happens to be, the doctors, who happen to be in the process of keeping me disabled and tortured. So I moved here from London on my 30th birthday, a match fit athlete, healthy, hard-working, 2 functional legs. And I was set up in a block of flats by a cluster group of people doing some really deviant things. And I'm about to explain that in a moment. So that's the headlands, which we'll be taking a walk up to in a moment. And this across the road here is where I was housed. That's Clarendon House, which was Clarendon House NHS Foundation Trust. And on the corner you have Northampton House. So that's the headlands where the GP's practice, Dr. John James Hart, happens to be located, who set me up at the hospital to be surgically violated when I first arrived. And across the road here we have Stagecoach, which is of significant importance. There's Stagecoach. In the background you can see the General Hospital, where they surgically violated me in a multitude of ways when I first arrived. So that in the background on the skyline is the hospital. Now here we're approaching Lotus Court, where beneath me was Gary Dixon Palmer, who was housed at 10 Lotus Court, mastheading me, who modelled himself on a clinical neurologist called Gary E. Schwartz. The block of flats here at Lotus Court, I occupied the top floor flat, and beneath me a group of people that continuously tortured the daylights out of me. There were numerous flats here. You have number 12 Lotus Court, where I was housed, upstairs. The flat beneath it is 10 Lotus Court, where Gary Dixon, Gary Palmer was housed. And on the back of the block of flats, Cassandra Tebbett, Astra Tebbett, who lives at number 18 Lotus Court. Now I'll quickly show you the Clarendon House NHS Foundation Trust, which has now closed down. But this was active when I first arrived here on my 30th birthday. They were open all the way up until about 2013, 2014. They've now turned it into a block of luxury flats. You can see Kettering Lodge Bowling Club. This is what was formerly Clarendon House NHS Mental Health. Now, they worked with a bunch of clinical neurologists, such as Dr. Richard Appleton, who works in conjunction with Dr. Jonathan Hart. So that's what was formerly the NHS Mental Health team, along with a group of neurologists. Now, as we approach here, I need to be very cautious because I still have problems with neighbours that live there. I shouldn't actually really necessarily be here recording. Okay, they've blocked all this part off. This was the back way into the car park for the bowling green and for the car park to Lotus Court. Okay, so Lotus Court, where a cluster group was housed. So Clarendon House NHS Foundation Trust with Dr. Richard Appleton, J. Charandic, along with Dr. Jonathan Hart on the headlands, who's had my leg surgically violated. Members of the parish church and a parish diocese that happen to be involved in occultist forms of Freemasonry, and a group of people that lived at Lotus Court whom took it in turns to systematically torture me. Now, at Lotus Court, there's a bowling green located out the back of the block of flats, and on that bowling green was the person that would abuse me as a child, John Bacon, playing bowls. Havel Tebbert, he uses the name Havel Tebbert, John Bacon. The corner flat's occupied by Cassandra Tebbert. Her brother or cousin, I think he may be the grandson of the person who abused me as a kid, his name's John Morrison, or uses the name John Morrison, caused me heaps of grief when I first arrived, but nothing like what Dr. John James Hart of 20 The Headlands caused me with the bogus arthrogram procedure, having my leg surgically violated and pinned. I'm going to be very cautious whilst walking down the back here now. That was the driving standards test centre. That was the DTC driving test centre, that building there, but they turned it into a funeral parlour about 2014. So I literally, in that car park, watched hundreds and hundreds of people pass their driving tests each summer whilst I was in that block of flats there, crippled, being tortured. I need to keep it quite a low profile whilst coming down this slope, because I've got real serious problems with two of the neighbours there. I really want to get a recording of the bowling green to show the bowling green by Lotus Court, the block of flats, because the person that abused me as a child, John Bacon, would take it upon himself with large cluster groups of their lodge members to taunt me each summer whilst I was being tortured in the block of flats with an RF field generator that they had access to, my leg surgically pinned. Quite bad, really bad, to be honest. That's Lotus Court. That's where I was housed upstairs. The flat's not empty. Right, this is where John Morrison would rev his motorbike up. On the bowling green is the gaffer. Okay, I'm missing half of the video that I just recorded, which is a shame, because I mentioned a lot of things concerning the clinical neurology with Jay Carandish and Richard Appleton that took place at the Headlands and at Clarendon House. The bowling green here, Lotus Court, where I was mast-headed with the RF field generator, and how it's all intrinsically interconnected. I did make a short video, but it was paused or was interrupted, so minutes of it is missing, so I've got to come back down there again. Okay, so this is Lotus Court, where they tortured me as a cluster group with Gabby Dixon Palmer at number 10 Lotus Court, Cassandra Tebbert, Astra Tebbert at number 18 Lotus Court, with a chap called John Morrison, who claimed to be the grandson of John Bacon, Havel Tebbert, who abused me as a child. He'd rev his motorbike up out in this car park on a regular basis each summer, taunt me. They had me assaulted on numerous occasions. In the middle floor flat was housed Gabby Dixon Palmer, who had an upside down St George's cross in his kitchen window, symbolic of having me mast-headed with the Occultist from the parish church and the Clarendon House NHS Foundation Trust. Here's the bowling green where John Bacon, Harold Tebbert and lodge members would hang out, and they would get inebriated in the summertime in the lodge bar, and would come out here taunting me all summer long, whilst I'd have to have my kitchen window open up there. Obviously hearing them taunt me in large cluster groups. The bowling green, I used to live here. The bowling green. Not up here, the bowling green, mate. So that's where John Bacon would be, and basically large cluster groups of them, old boys network members, hanging out in the summer months, getting inebriated, rather drunk. Not very good. That was a drive. Okay, so decided to make another video since I was so rudely interrupted on 2 other occasions. My video jammed on me because of not enough gigabytes in the phone. So I need to clear some memory from the phone and make a new video. So I'm on the Headlands again. That's 65 The Headlands, which was the dental practice of Dr. S.S. Tandy. Now, with what I mentioned earlier concerning Clarendon House NHS Foundation Trust, with Dr. Richard Appleton, Dr. John Hart of the Headlands, 20 the Headlands, so that's 65 the Headlands, Dr. S.S. Tandy, with them all combined, they Dr. S.S. Tandy provides the disilicate ion lithium dental crowns that are perfused to an alloy jacket, which they lut with lithium dental cement to the tooth pulp afferent of the tooth of the molar that they tap. Cut a long story short, it's like neurological tapping on the Headlands. So that's the dentistry provided by Dr. S.S. Tandy in the October of 2007. When I just arrived in Kettering, I get a letter in the post, first month of being here. I'm taken into the dentist on the Headlands and they've tapped me. Now, back at the block of flats at Lotus Court by the bowling green, where John Bacon, who abused me as a child, was on the bowling green, they had an RF field generator in the block of flats, Gary Dixon. He modelled himself on a clinical neurologist called Gary E. Schwartz, and they had prepped him up with an RF field generator. So it's similar to Faraday's principle of electromagnetic induction meets ionic theory in terms of the physics and chemistry involved, in terms of the biochemistry. So that was October 2007. I just arrived in Kettering. Within a month of being here, I'm on the Headlands. I've had my left upper molar tapped with a disilicate ion lithium dental crown and a load of other shoddy dental work performed that shouldn't have needed to take place, with temporary fillings being put in that were never... it's a long story I won't go into right now, but we're heading along the Headlands back towards Dr. John James Hart's practice at 20 the Headlands, Kettering. So now all of these places are in very close proximity to one another, in very close proximity to the parish church, parish diocese, in very close proximity with the dental practice on the Headlands, with Dr. S.S. Tandy, another Naxxi dentist, working with JJ. So you got JJ Hart, John James Hart of 20 the Headlands, and SS Tandy of 65 the Headlands. SS Tandy doesn't work there anymore. They've packed up shop and left. He's gone to Birmingham. Dr. Richard Appleton's gone to the neurologist from Clarendon House by Lotus Court, who was involved in the masthead in the ECT headset sittings at the neurology audiology department at KGH in the June of 2008. He's gone to Liverpool, I believe, the older Hay Hospital, Liverpool. So lots of them have left. Clarendon House NHS Foundation Trust on Station Road, right next door to Lotus Court by the bowling green, which housed about 40 of them, has been closed down about 2014. SS Tandy's left. Now all that's left here at the moment from the initial, when I first arrived in Kettering was violated, is Dr. John James Hart of 20 the Headlands General Surgery, Lakeside Healthcare, where I'm still a patient for obvious reasons, because he's the only one who has the budget expenditure to pay for surgery should he want to reverse what he's had done to my leg. And he's the only person to have sent me to Professor Damien Griffin in Coventry, and also afforded me the means to go to Edinburgh. But I don't know whether he's just covering his own back after having what he's had done to me at this arthrogram procedure. But here's the Headlands practice. That's the Headlands surgery at 20 the Headlands. Now, I'd like to go back down to the back of Lotus Court again, where we was all housed. I was at number 18 Lotus Court for 12 years. Cassandra, at number 12, sorry. Cassandra Tebbert was at number 18 Lotus Court. Astra Tebbert, with Gary Dixon housed in the flat beneath me at number 10 Lotus Court. Gary Dixon Palmer is the one who models himself on Gary E. Schwartz, the clinical neurologist. He's the one that was prepped up with the RF field generator, along with Cassandra Tebbert. They all sort of ganged up on me. Blue-eyed brethren, all of them proclaiming to be members of the Aryan Great White Supremacist faction of the OTO, of the Ordini Templi Orientis, of the Freemasons. Dixon had a load of Freemasonry stuff hung in his window, an upside down St. George's cross, symbolic of the mastheading taking place at the block of flats. They put a pornographic movie onto the internet, symbolic of them mastheading me. They called the ship, or the Cutty Sark. On the side of the council's offices walls is a ship's will. It's kind of symbolic of the chartered institutional abuse that takes place. Here's another dental practice. That as of yet hasn't in any way violated me or set me up to be tortured, but there was, like I say, the other dental practice of SS Tandy at 65 the Headlands. Then you have John James Hart of 20 the Headlands, who's had my leg surgically violated at the bogus arthrogram procedure, which was a double bluff setup on May the 13th of 2008, where they've embedded something in the top of my leg and damaged nerve in my leg, in my quadriceps severely, so it's left me disabled and in excruciating discomfort. So here we have the park on the corner. Now I would like to go back down to Lotus Court to film the bowling green again and explain what was going on there with John Bacon, Cassandra Tebbert and the rest of them, but I don't think that would be too wise at the moment. It was only like it was only an hour ago that I went down the back there to record, and somebody had a go at me for filming out the back there. They thought that I was filming them in their flat, which was obviously not the case, but I've had so many problems with people there over the past 12 years. Hopefully the other video that I made documents the bowling green behind Lotus Court, the block of flats where we was all housed for 12, well, I was housed with them for 12 years. Once again, here you can see Station Road, where Clarendon House formerly was. Got the front of the bowling green down that end, Stagecoach. Perhaps I will just walk past Lotus Court one last time to get it in perspective. So there's the Headlands. That's John Hart, who was involved with John Bacon, the person who abused me as a boy for 10 years out on the bowling green. John Bacon, the proprietor of the handheld stun gun, the telescopic ball baton that he abused young boys with, like a really nasty piece of work, white supremacist, evangelist, Lutheran, OTO again, believes everyone that he's abusing is a Catholic or a Jew, not a really nasty piece of work. That's John Bacon. So you've got Dr. John James Hart aiding and abetting in the surgical violating of his victims. They'd already had me surgically violated in Havering, Atty-Bower between 1990 and 1992 with 2 operations that never needed to take place. And then as soon as I arrived in Kettering, Northamptonshire on my 30th birthday, they arranged again to have me surgically violated with a bogus arthrogram procedure set up by Dr. John James Hart of the Headlands on the 13th of May of 2008 when I was 30. So that's cost me 13 years of my life limping about. But that's Lotus Court again, which I can't film too much of, because I don't want too many problems with anyone coming out of their flats there because of what's gone on. The bowling, this is formerly Clarendon House NHS Foundation Trust, which did house, as you can see, all of the windows there, about 40 officers. And that's where Dr. Richard Appleton, Dr. J. Turan Dick and others were situated. So they took the group dynamics of what was taking place at Lotus Court and turned it into a field study, whilst they had the bowling green field located out the back of Clarendon House. If you go to the bowling green and stand by the car park there, or look from the bowling green, you can see all the office windows to Clarendon House, and Clarendon House kind of overlooks the bowling green. I'll see if I can find another perspective for looking at the bowling green without annoying anyone at Lotus Court. It's quite difficult because the only place you can really get a good view of the bowling green is from a car park at Lotus Court, but I'm being intimidated by some of the residents that live there. There's been a fallout between a lot of us, so it's not good for me to return to the car park there. And if you look at the other video that I made, there you can see the back of the bowling green. That's the Bowling Green Lodge. So the lodge members would hang out in the Bowling Green Lodge all summer long, and John Bacon, who abused me as a boy, physically and sexually, and with a handheld stun gun and a telescopic ball baton, would batter the ball baton around, freak the daylights out of me, shock me with a stun gun, place me into a state of psychological submission. he would strut his stuff out on the bowling green, walking back and forth for every summer. That went on every summer for like every summer for 12 years, like on and off. He'd turn up in the summer months with team players playing bowls, all of them white supremacists, which is ironic because the reason I cannot go back to the bowling green to film the bowling green from Lotus Court car park is because of one of the residents there at his window getting annoyed with me filming. He happens to be black, which is ironic because he probably has no inclination into what takes place with those lodge members on the bowling green and senior parish diocese members with the white supremacist attitudes that they appropriate. The 12 years I lived at Lotus Court tortured, I limped about the flat in agonising discomfort. I was on crutches for 2 years and a walking stick for over 10 years. And John Bacon would turn up on the bowling green, strutting his stuff, walking up and down, playing bowls all day in the summer months. He would get inebriated with other lodge members. He'd use alias names as well. This is the thing, I'm not sure if he was using the name Harold Tebbert or John Bacon. But whatever name he was appropriating on that bowling green, he'd go out there, get inebriated with them. Then they would all start cursing and mocking, ridiculing me for what had gone on when I was young. Nasty piece of work. He's in his 70s now. When I knew him, he was in his 40s. That's going back 30 years. So look, there you can see Lotus Court from here, from a very long-winded angle, but one of the neighbours there doesn't like what I was recording earlier, so that's the back of Lotus Court. Now, the lotus flower is a symbol of fertility, and they had this, like, with Gary Palmer at 10 Lotus Court, and Cassandra Tebbert at number 18 Lotus Court, and some of the other occupants that were placed there, whether they were privately renting one of the rooms or not, they were into this, like, OTO cold craft, like this Aleister Crowley-esque cold craft. Dixon had a balder head, kind of modelled himself on Crowley, and they made a lot of weird videos there, and would throw sex parties and have all types of weird debauchery go on whilst operating the RF field generator. His primary function there, in terms of proving himself to the senior like Masonic members of their Masonic lodge and the bowling green lodge, was operating the RF field generator day and night from the flat downstairs, mastheading. So they had put the dentistry in on the headlands in the October of 2007, and straight away they showed me the RF field generator that they're operating in the block of flats. There's not much that I can do about it. I'm housed there. It was 12 years of torture and ridicule. So Dr. John Hart's damaged the leg in the May of 2008. Dr. S.S. Tandy's hooked up the dental neural tapping in the October of 2007. A lot of weird things happen. Now, my daughters and my ex live in Hertfordshire, Harpenden and St Albans, and they had some movies where they targeted my ex's eldest daughter with a target lens camcorder. They also had the ship movie, the RF field generator, like symbolic of the operating of the RF field generator, like German Kopfhorter movie. Proper Nazism, like where they were showing all of the symbolic interactionism that occurs with them whilst they tap someone. I'm going to take a walk up this side of the bowling green and of Lotus Court. This is the Northampton Road. That is by Lotus Court and the bowling green. Now, Clarendon House NHS Foundation Trust is no longer there. Dr. S.S. Tandy's left, Richard Appleton's left, but you still have Zoe Cardell and Phil Han at the hospital, at the General Hospital, and they're using the General Hospital's radiology and fluoroscopy department for tapping of nerves in the leg and the embedding procedures. And then they've got the neurology audiology department turned over to unlawful ECT headset sittings that are styled out as hearing tests. It's a long story that I'll try to explain in the future, but I'm kind of exhausted and walking. So here we have it. That's the Bowling Green Lodge, the entrance. I've got to be careful now because I've just been had someone have a right go at me, like out of the back of the block of flats a little while ago. There you go, Kettering Lodge Bowling Club. That leads back up to the headlands. There you can see the church. what was taking place under the spire of the church. So I'll hide this phone a moment. That's Lotus Court, just past from the Northampton Road. What was once the driving test centre when I first moved to Kettering, which is directly adjacent the opposite side of the block of flats, has been turned into Avril Phillips family funeral parlour, which is kind of ironic because I had an aunt called Avril who passed away. From Dundee, bizarre. Just coincidence perhaps, but the rest of what's going on here is no coincidence. It was well thought out, strategically implemented before my arrival. They invite me on my 30th birthday to live at Lotus Court. The lotus flowers, a symbol of fertility, and for their occultist Nazi fertility rites, and for their biological and warfare in their communal collective, how can I put it, group dynamics. Clarendon House literally studied what was going on there. They had an overview of everything going on the bowling green, in the block of flats that was monitored. And they just allowed them to torture me basically for years upon end. They went on for absolutely years. Assaults. Age 33, they put some phosphoric acid into some facial scrub which badly burnt my dermis. They'd had my teeth tapped. They'd targeted my oldest daughter 4 stops down the train track with a target lens camcorder. Had shown me the movies that they'd made. They had these on the headlands covering for them. Dr. John James Hart having had me surgically violated with like the bogus arthrogram procedure where I was laid under a fluoroscopy box at Kettering General Hospital, anaesthetised, whilst they stuck stuff into the top of my leg, bored a big hole into the top of my leg, and it feels like they've embedded a pin in the leg or have severely damaged the quadricep nerve, feeding the quadriceps and inner thigh muscles. But it literally feels like something's been embedded in the leg. And fluoroscopy is used for implantation procedures, and that's what they had me laid under, age 30. He told me he was sending me there for a scan on my back, but when I got up there, they first performed an MRI scan on my back in the April of 2008, but in the May of 2008, May 13th, I think it was Tuesday, May 13th, about 10-20 hours in the morning, they had me surgically violated under a fluoroscopy box, the radiology OT, the operating theatre there. Then on the June 23rd of 2008, a month after they'd had my leg surgically violated, they somehow managed to tactfully coerce me into the audiology neurology department and gave me an unlawful ECT headset sitting. So that's all in the same year when I first arrived in Kettering. They violated me, damaged all my teeth, tapped my teeth October. Following year with Gary Dixon, Palmer, John Bacon, the Bacons and the Dixons, Morrison, Hamilton, Tebbert, he used his name Harold Tebbert, with John Hart of the Headlands and Dr. S.S. Tandy. They had me set up straight away as soon as I arrived to be tortured, while senior members of the parish diocese allowed it to happen. What I find really ironic about this as well is, like, Home Group, who provided the housing to us all at Lotus Court, they happen to be subcontracting Wilmot Dixon Group, and my ex lives in Hertfordshire. Wilmot Dixon Group are from Letchworth Garden City, Hertfordshire, and Dixon Group PLC are from the Maylands Industrial Estate, Buncefield Industrial Estate, Hemel Hempstead, Herts. It was like he'd known me from my past, and he had preemptively set up this means to have me mastheaded when I was 30, and that with members of the church here, he got to play the part of being the Summus Sanctissimus, most holy Baphometed King Rex X, with his X marks the spot. So I've got my target lens camcorder on your daughter movies and his BDSM movies. Dixon, that is, Gary Dixon of 10 Lotus Court, or Gary Palmer. Apparently he's had all piercings, like a Prince Albert piercing put in down under, and he's been sobbing sized. I don't know how much truth there is to this. It's a bit like circumcision, and he gets to sob his victims off in really bizarre ways. That's the one who modelled himself on Gary E. Schwartz, the clinical neurologist. So he lived at 10 Lotus Court, and then when he, I presume or assume he moved out, I believe they started renting, or he started renting the flat to a group of debauched arseholes who for 2 years put power tools on in the flat through like really weird parties every weekend, swingers parties and BDSM nights, whilst operating power tools from the flat, until eventually it all kicked off there. And that's why I'm not really welcome back down that part of town, and I just thought I'd make this short video to give an insight into kind of what goes on there. Well, I think I may have gone over 20 minutes, which is a shame, because I'm not sure if YouTube will let me upload it if it's over 20 minutes. I'll have to see. But yeah, that's the crux of it. I arrived in Kettering, Northamptonshire on my 30th birthday. Healthy, 2 functional legs, good skin complexion, healthy teeth, good health. It took them in less than a month to have me surgically violated at 65 to Headlands. It took them less than a year to have me physiologically deprived of liberty and afflicted with the bogus arthrogram procedure, which was a double bluff to get me set up to be systematically tortured. Then they bragged about being members of the disabling professions and how great they all were. And then with Dixon at the helming it, how clever it always was in terms of occult theocracy and occult Freemasonry. The aggrandizement methods, the pornography, the libidinal tap, the anaclyptic and introjective borderline, how can I put this, psychopathology of which was taking place. How he was aggrandizing this, I don't know, a developmental pathway model of psychopathology, how clever his sociopathic scheming was, and his corporate exercise, because of the fact that Wilmot Dixon Group was subcontracted to Home Group, and he was subbing me off in the block of flats there, using the name Gary Dixon, Gary Palmer. Or, some saying he was using the name William Devereux with an X on the end, and like how he works it like the devil with his satanic cult craft. So he subbed me in the block of flats, and I had the relatives of the person that abused me as a kid in cohort with him on the bowling green. That's old boy Harold Tebbett, John Bacon, from 9 Denby House, Kingsbridge Circus, Harold Hill, Romford, Essex, in the Royal Liberty of Havering Atty Bower. He'd somehow got wind of where I was at, knew about the grander schematizing of it all, and was out on the bowling green playing bowls. Now this is the same person that between 1986 and 1996 had me surgically butchered twice, tortured, sexually abused, shocked with a handheld stun gun on several occasions, psychologically coerced under the influence of pharmaceutical drugs, and tortured for the best part of 10 years of my childhood. He's out on the bowling green with bragging rights, bowling up and down. He's a Jew, he's a Catholic, he's a kafar, he's getting what's coming to him. Turns out all of them, including Dr. John James Hart, apart from the Asians, obviously, but all of the white folk all have blue-grey eyes. They've all fair-skinned. They happen to be what they call evangelical Lutherans. They attended the St. John the Evangelist Church in the Royal Liberty of Havering Atty Bower, in as much St. Peter and Paul's Kettering Parish Diocese Parish Church in Kettering, Northamptonshire, and they've got their link-ups. But yeah, all of them basically Nazis. Northants, neo-Nazism. Lutheran, evangelical, neo-Nazism. And because of my ethnicity and because of what's gone on when I was young, they've managed to coerce a bunch of clinicians and physicians into partaking. And some of those physicians and clinicians happen to be Asian. But it turns out with the occult Freemasonry that takes place and the occult theocracy, of this land that most of them are interconnected with one another. So you've got there's a like you've got your Aryans and you've got your Aryans. So you've got your Aryan Jainist Asian, like Dr. S.S. Tandy, working with your Aryan Puritan, such as the John James Hart. So you get J.J. and S.S. Dr. S.S. Tandy of the Headlands and Dr. J.J. Hart of the Headlands. Hart's kingdom's a miserable, horrible kingdom, and what they've got set up is absolutely disgusting. So from the surgical violating of people, the taking of sexual abuse victims that they torture and persecute as they work it off in groups, the neurological tapping in terms of cerebral dyslateralization, hemispheric specialization as they tap into the brains, the neurology of the victim that they get to masthead in torture. Then they demean the victim with movies of them targeting the victim's daughter, offspring, and going out of their way to play mind games to really pull up the heartstrings to get into the mind of the victim. Because my ex lives in Hertfordshire with my 2 daughters who are back in Herts, 4 stops down the train track from here. Dr. J.J. Hart at the helm on the Headlands. Gary Dixon helming it off with his phallus worshipped movie collection, whilst members of the Old Boys Network on the bowling green couldn't get enough of it with John Bacon, Harold Tebbert, giggles every summer. They're all of them inebriated out on the bowling green for hours upon end as I got tortured in that block of flats limping around, whilst the person that buggered and abused me as a child strolling and strutting his stuff back and forth up and down on the bowling green playing bowls every summer. Yeah, bizarre. But anyway, I'm going to cut this video short.